Welcome to the Offshore Club's most riveting and revealing offshore lifestyle podcast, Open Mike, with Mike Cobb. For more than 20 years, Mike has worked and lived in Caribbean countries from north to south and the Atlantic to the Pacific. Nobody knows it better. And now, here is your offshore ambassador at large, Mike Cobb.
Hi, this is Carter Clews, and welcome to Open Mike with Mike Cobb, the international entrepreneur, investor extraordinaire. And today, we're going to talk about Nicaragua, what I consider, frankly, one of the great lifestyle investment and monetary investment countries, I think, in the world, certainly in Central America and the Caribbean. Mike already owns a gorgeous resort there. Mike, let's talk about Nicaragua, Gran Pacifica, and what folks can look for themselves if they want to invest or live in that gorgeous country and gorgeous resort.
Sure, Carter. Hey, good to be with you. It always is. And, I absolutely love Nicaragua. I know that's a pretty contrarian statement. A lot of folks my age, your age, remember the Iran-Contra, Ali North, sort of that whole, the Civil War, a horrible Civil War in Nicaragua from 1979 to 1989. And so that's, look, the news media, if it bleeds, it leads, right? Yeah. And so, when the Civil War ended it ended prior to 1989, but they had their elections in 1989, and Doña Violeta Chamorro was elected, and the country became a democracy, and the news media left. There was no more blood, right? So the last thing that our generation remembers, Carter, is war and strife and right. But for 40 years since, we don't have any news. There's been no news because it's bleeding, right? So anyway,
it's their obsession. It always amuses me because I worked with Ronald Reagan back in the days when we were trying to get rid of Ortega. And it's turned out he had free elections. Look, the country, here's one of the reasons you don't hear about Nicaragua. It's the safest country in Central America. Yeah. Nicaragua has 8 murders per 100,000 people. Yeah. United States has 5. So I'd say that's a pretty safe place to be.
Well, it is, Carter. Yeah. And I lived there. I moved there with my blonde wife and tow-headed daughter, 2-year-old daughter, back in 2002. And the only reason I mentioned that they were blonde and tow-headed is because we didn't look Nicaraguan at all. Like, we did not blend in.
No, you definitely did not blend in.
One bit. And we lived there for 14 years as a family. And we had a second little daughter that came along. And, in 14 years, the only incident of crime that we ever experienced was our security guard / cuidador, guy, took some of my pants off the back line when they were drying. And that was it. I mean, in 14 years, that was the crime we experienced as a family. But let me also say that, unless I was off, at a wedding, like weddings go all night. But anyway, unless I was out for something like a wedding, I was home in bed by midnight every night, right? I mean, I think it might have been at 10 weddings over 14 years or something that kept me out till 4 a.m. But like, literally, if you're home in bed by midnight, like, and just use common sense, it's a very, very safe country. My point about crime is local. Like, I'm here in Boston right now, getting ready to fly over to the Azores. We talked about that last week for the Golden Visa program there. I'm sure there are places in Boston that I could go looking for trouble. I'd find it. But, I'm over here in Waltham, and you know what? There's no trouble to be found, best I can tell. And I was asleep by 9:30 last night. So,
Very good. Well, right. So you're in Boston having a near life experience.
Exactly. Right.
All right, let's talk about, so Nicaragua is stunning beauty, safe, wonderful people.
Yes.
And you started Gran Pacifica. And folks, let me make clear, if you invest in Gran Pacifica, it may be the smartest investment you've ever made. I think your return on investment is going to be much better than Wall Street, which is average 10% per year, a random walk. And you're going to have a gorgeous, beautiful home in a wonderful country. But we're not here to sell you that. I'm personally here to sell you on buying something in Nicaragua. And I think I go to ecidevelopment.com and check out Gran Pacifica if I were you. But Mike, let's go back and talk about what happened. How did you one day look at Nicaragua at the beach and say, I'm going to build the most beautiful residential resort community, one of the most beautiful in Central America here? What happened? How'd that come about?
Well, believe it or not, that story actually starts in Belize about 4 years prior to the owning the property in Nicaragua. But in Nicaragua specifically, we were just looking for a piece of property where we could develop. Really, I would call it the blank palette, right? The blank canvas. So often, when you come into a development situation, you're coming in to rescue a project, which is how we got started. We rescued a failing hotel in Belize, and that was how we got started. But that was somebody else's dream turned nightmare that we were able to turn around. And so one of the things that's fun is when you can find a piece of property that's truly a blank canvas and let your artistic team come in and figure out what's doable. Let your I'm going to call them the scientific team, your engineers and finance people to come in and work to let you know what's feasible, right? So you have what's desirable from the artists, right? And you have what's feasible from the engineers and the finance people, and blend that together to come up with something that's just truly awesome, yet very developable, very practical, right? And so we were able to do that in Nicaragua. The piece of property is 3.5 miles of beach. And just imagine that, Carter. The property is 3.5 miles long on the beach and 1 mile deep. And we, it took about a year, honestly, from we bought it in 2000, and it wasn't until 2001 we really got this comprehension that we were building a town. Right, we were building a town. I mean, it's 3.5 miles by 1 mile. That's a town, right?
Town,
and yeah. So we hired a group of folks out of Pittsburgh that had designed Walt Disney's Celebration and a bunch of other towns across the United States, and we brought them in to help us design our town. So that's how we got started. And and something we referred to the last time was going out and hiring local architects that carry a traditional sensibility, so that what we built was very, very authentic to the colonial cities of Leon and Granada.
Wow.
Yeah, just building something beautiful and wonderful that blends with the history of the country, and then doing it affordably. Homes that start right under 100,000, oceanfront condos on the Pacific Ocean starting about 150. And then, we have some $1 million homes too. People have come in and bought an oceanfront lot and built a beautiful home that, anywhere else. I mean, in California, it'd be 8, 10, 15 million.
Easily.
Right? In Nicaragua, it's $1 million, right? So it's the value proposition to be able to own a beautiful home on the Pacific or a beautiful condominium on the Pacific for pennies on the dollar of what you would pay for it in the US is tremendous. And so, our clients are folks that in many cases can't afford California, right? And so that's not happening. But what's interesting, Carter, is a lot of our property owners are people who probably can afford a $5 million house, in California, or a $10 million house on the beach in California, but who choose to come, invest $500,000 for a home or $1 million for a home and put the rest of the money to work, somewhere else.
It's fantastic. And let's be clear about two things. One is that when you talk about a beachfront home for $150,000,
that's a condo. Sorry, that's a condo.
That condo probably in Miami or the California coast could be $1.5 million to $2 million. It's just that simple.
Yeah, it would be a multiple of that number. Correct.
Be a multiple of that number.
Yeah, right.
And I want to make clear, because I think it's important to people, you're not building. You don't build housing developments, okay? No. I have a place up in West Virginia. My wife drive by. They're building these housing developments out there in the middle of what once were cow pastures.
Right.
And they put in a road and they put these prefab houses.
Yep.
but there is nothing there. It's not a community. And I want to go back to that with you. You said community, and explain that with Gran Pacifica, if you don't mind.
Well, sure. And thanks for picking up on that word, because I do use that word intentionally.
Good.
And there's a way to create community. It's in our business plan, and there's, I don't know, 20 pages of our business plan talk about this, because truly it's the secret sauce, Carter. That it is the secret sauce of what we do. And so I'm going to use an example out of the Panhandle of Florida. There's a place called Watercolor, and they are selling 1/12 of an acre. So that's about 3,500, 4,000. I'll call it a 1/10 of an acre, 4,000 square foot lot. That's not the house. That's just the land. 4,000 square foot lot for mill and a half, $2 million. And literally, and it's not even on the beach. It's a half a mile from the beach, right? Literally, you could get in your car, drive 6 miles east or west of Watercolor, and you could buy a 1/4 acre with a small house on it for $500,000. And so empirically, you would say to yourself, well, that's the better deal. I mean, a 1/4 acre or more, which is like 3 times the property with a small house on it for half the price. Like if you were just looking at numbers totally objectively, that's the better deal. Yet for some reason, many people are shelling out $1.5 million, $2 million for a piece of dirt, and then build a house on it for 2x, 3 times the price. Why?
Well, and it's not a community. It's just one little cracker box house next to the other. Right.
Community. People want community. People will pay for community because it's valuable. And so, when you can build true community, you create the heart space, Carter, the heart space. It's a place where people can hang out with one another. And here's the thing about overseas community. This is what's exciting, is that again, we're all different people. We come from different backgrounds, maybe different political philosophies, different work backgrounds, different religious backgrounds, blah, 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 blah. We're all different people, right?
Right.
But here's the thing that I've found in 25 years of doing business as ECI development, right? I have found that a spirit of adventure, or as we like to call it, the adventurous soul, is the thread that really weaves all the folks who either invest or live overseas. And so when you're around people who share this adventurous soul, there's a camaraderie, there's a spirit there that's palatable, and it makes the community vibrant and exciting, because we are exciting people. Let me just tell you, Carter, you own a couple properties in Honduras. Yeah. You have an adventurous spirit, and it's one of the reasons that I think so many people love to expat. And when they expat and then come back to the States, which I have done, we kind of feel like something's missing a little bit. And it's interesting. There's a Lord of the Rings, the movies. I don't know if you saw them or not.
Everybody saw them.
Yeah, right. I've read the books. Yeah, I read the books and all kind of stuff. But the movie, for whatever reason, hit me hard in this one scene that I never picked up in the books. Well, maybe because it's when I saw the movie versus when I read them. I read them in high school and in college. I saw the movie as an adult, and I saw the movie while I was living in Nicaragua. And the third movie, when Frodo comes back to the Shire and Sam gets married to his girlfriend, the bartender, and like they're having this big party, and there's this moment. I'm getting choked up again. There's this moment when Frodo realizes he can't come back to the Shire because the Shire is no longer home. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I remember crying. I remember finding myself crying in the movie theater, like just. Not sobbing, but I mean, just tears running down my face with this realization that, like, I probably can't go home because home isn't that anymore, right? And so I did move back to the States. I've been back in the States 4 years. We moved back because our daughter got a beautiful high school dance opportunity with the Joffrey Ballet Program in New York City. So we wanted to be closer to New York than Managua, right? But I can tell you, Carter, that spirit of adventure, the folks that we made as friends, the community that we built living in Nicaragua was powerful and profound. And it changed me in ways that I didn't realize until that moment in the movie theater, just how profoundly I had changed as a human being, because I had found a community of people that I truly enjoyed being around. So anyway, careful. If you become an expat, it's going to bite you.
Yeah, look, I lived in Honduras 10 years ago. It's hard to believe. And obviously we're going to move back again, but I miss it every day. Just a simple, wonderful lifestyle that was there. And so I agree. And particularly when you talk, and I love the idea of a community of people with a commonality of interest. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of it. And what you've done is made it so people have places to go eat, to congregate, to gather, have a cup of coffee. So it's just, you have made, you mentioned California, and I couldn't help but think to myself, the difference between California and Gran, Pacifica, and Nicaragua is people are fleeing from California. They're fleeing to Nicaragua. It's just that simple.
Funny, isn't it?
It's funny.
Right.
Sort of the price and a better lifestyle. So, folks, check it out. ECIdevelopment.com. Yep. Check it out. Get their Nicaragua handbook, right? And the Nicaragua handbook is free. Yep. ECIdevelopment.com. Check out Gran Pacifica. I'm going to bet you, as you start looking into it more and more, you're going to find you want to be part of that community. Mike, thank you very much. Thanks for giving us the history there and the future. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks, Carter.
For more information on the Offshore Club or to contact Mike Cobb, visit offshore.club today. Offshore.club. See you next time at the Offshore Club.